incoming. Here we go.
Hello.
Fresh air, the sun, those things are very important.
In Britain exists this kind of indefinite detention of asylum seekers, and actually it really struck me as something kind of powerful because I grew up very close to a place called Dover, and Dover is not only one of the places where a lot of asylum seekers reach this country, but it's also a place where there is a huge detention centre on the top of the White Cliffs of Dover, which is specifically there to keep asylum seekers locked up.
We must stay ahead of them using technology to defend ourselves.
It's interesting because, you know, you've got this problem where you can't go into a detention centre, you can't film in there, you can't take photos of these people, you can't take photos of the spaces even. So how are you going to translate that? Working with the animation, I think, was really kind of a no-brainer for me. It's like, you know, it's a really interesting way of taking on this issue. You're not looking necessarily at the individuals, you're looking more at the situation and the problem in itself. And I think, you know, animation has that. Animation can kind of like be a bit more universal. You're not talking about this person in this particular situation. You're talking about something more universal because the drawing itself is kind of something more ephemeral.
Now, the world outside is a hazardous place.
I wanted to get away from talking about stuff which I think people already kind of understand or know about, at least to a certain extent, and kind of get to the point of the detention, because I think it's something very unknown. We look really more at the very sort of psychological issues that are involved in indefinite detention. You know, a detention that you don't know when it's going to end. You don't know whether you're going to be freed in the UK or sent back to somewhere that you've obviously tried to escape.
Fundamentalism, civil unrest.
People, you know, trying to commit suicide quite often. There's some very vulnerable people in there psychologically. People who've sewed their lips up, sewed their eyelids up, you know, as an act of protest. So, you know, those were the things that I thought needed to be understood.
It appealed to me because it had issues that were important to me as well. I mean, I find that Labour's line on indefinite detention is unacceptable, and I don't think that you can keep people indefinitely. I think it's inhumane, and it just represents a problem that's not just in this country, it's a global problem. You can see it in Abu Ghraib, you can see it in Guantanamo Bay, you can see it in Bagram, you see it here. And the problem is, this is an issue for people. It's psychologically really, really destructive.
The majority are bogus, illegal, and dangerous.
This is without doubt one of the most important issues of our age. Because basically these days, like, people move more than ever around the world. The world is just a very interconnected place. The idea that a boundary is a fixed, you know, a fixed line between one country and another is a myth. And the idea that we can, you know, continue to not to care about people who basically we're responsible in many ways for their situation anyway is just complete rubbish.
I can't sit in my comfortable little studio without going and seeing this and try and recreate a sort of atmosphere, and it was very impactful, you know. I saw the way that the security is implemented in these places, I saw the way these people exist, and a lot of that is reflected in little quirks and little moments in that animation.
You know, I just hope that the film, you know, just grabs people's attention for this particular issue. I think, you know, it's a really important issue, and I think with a bit of weight behind it, we could actually quite easily end indefinite detention in the UK.